Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the program. It is 2 a.m. My clock is 2 minutes slow back there, that cheap Chinese garbage. It looks lovely, though, doesn't it? 2 a.m. here on the 14th of August, 2025. It's Chris live in central Pennsylvania. No rest for the wicked. My Wednesday continues, what with early morning work, then a broadcast. Well, actually, I did a video recording with a content provider or content creator, then did a news broadcast, then did the show with Ronaldo, then had some research to do. Did my radio program in the evening, did my night owls, and was answering mail and about to hit the rack when this story broke. So I'm here to confirm some things and to also offer some analysis about some speculation in an article in the Daily Maverick by Rebecca Davis. She's put an article out there for exclusive, and congratulations to her. But I can confirm that some of what she says is in fact true. Now, how do I know that already? Well, you figure that part out. All right, so it's not about clicks. It's not about attention. It's not about fame. Otherwise, I would have broken many stories. And this is yet another story that I have kept close to protect the process. But it's now out there in the press. And so I'm going to confirm it and let you know what's going on here. Welcome everybody in the program. So anyway, let's get to this. So here's the story specifically that Rebecca Davis in the Daily Maverick. I didn't have a chance to post the link to it. I was busy doing something else, but I'll do that a little bit later on. But here's the story, and I'm going to get to this, and we're going to talk about it right now. So, all right, there you go. Exclusive, U.S. plan to bring Kenyans to South Africa to process Afrikaner refugees. Okay, first off, Rebecca Davis, again, I don't know if it's you or your editor, but they're not Afrikaner refugees. Stop with your fake news propaganda, Daily Maverick. They are South Africans, colored, Indian, and white, not Afrikaner, and they are refugees. This is nauseating. They are refugees. They have met the legal definition of refugee under U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980. And you can stop with your fake media quotes around refugees. Or we're going to start calling you not media. We're going to start calling you the girls' cafe clutch is what we'll call you. Stupid stuff. Rebecca Davis, the State Department wants to bring workers from Kenya to South Africa to help with the Afrikaner Refugee Project, and the South African government is not amused. Well, I'm not amused at your fake writing there. That's not the title. That's actually the content. So you're responsible for that, even though your editor might have changed the title. I gave you that pass. But they're not Afrikaner refugees. They're South African refugees. Stop misleading the public. And it's not a project. It's part of an existing legal program. And if you can't get your little leftist head around that, Miss Davis, then perhaps you should stop reporting, because what you're reporting is little more than trash. And you're exclusive here? Let's get into that. Let's talk about that. The U.S. State Department has asked the South African government to fast-track visas for about 30 workers based in Kenya so they can assist with processing the Afrikaner refugees. And again, using the quote. I'm sorry. The journalist, Rebecca Davis, the journalist, not really a journalist, once again with propaganda. Department of Home Affairs confirmed to the Daily Maverick on Wednesday that the visa applications had been received on July 29th. The plan is to bring the Nairobi-based staffers to live and work in South Africa for about 2 years, after which it appears the resettlement window for Afrikaner refugees in the U.S. may be closed. Well, that is pure speculation in a news article by her. She has no evidence, no indication, no statement from any body whatsoever that would confirm that the program would close in 2 years, because no such decision has ever been punted about. She's simply speculating. But she is correct. The U.S. government intends to bring 30 people from the RSC project to South Africa to process refugee applicants. When I say process, it's a screening process. They have no say in whether you get chosen or not. Whatever they put in the form doesn't determine whether you go or not. It's your answers that determine whether you go or not. And they will be doing initial screening, which they've already been doing remotely from Kenya. All right? So that's a true statement. And it's not news to me. But I didn't tell you this story because it was inappropriate. But since the story is broken now, let's go with it. Government Communication and Information Systems spokesperson Nomande Manukwa told Daily Maverick that the subject was not on the formal agenda of the cabinet, which met last week, and no written submissions were submitted for cabinet discussions to the effect. Daily Maverick understands in impeccable sources, however, from the impeccable source, that the issue was verbally discussed at the last cabinet meeting, and the sentiment was one of annoyance. Good. Good. The South African government's annoyed? Well, I think turnabout's fair play. United States government is annoyed. Daily Maverick, the South African government has made it clear that it deeply disapproves of the controversial refugee program, with presidency spokesman Vincent Magwenya saying in May, "Our position is that there are no South African citizens who can be classified as refugees to any part of the world." Well, of course not, Vincent. Of course not. That's your view. And it's morally wrong. You have 145 race-based laws that discriminate against South Africans. You could sit here and twist it all you want and claim that historically disadvantaged people deserve a benefit. Well, you have no right to discriminate against people born in a free South Africa whose skin pigmentation doesn't satisfy your racist laws. So that alone qualifies people to leave South Africa as refugees under the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1980. And I don't give two flying flips what Vincent Magwenya has to say about who is and is not a refugee. It's not up to Vincent Magwenya. It's up to the U.S. government to determine who we accept as refugees under our Immigration and Nationality Act. The people in South Africa meet the international definition recognized by the United Nations for a refugee. They are a group suffering unjust racial persecution. Indians, coloreds, and white South Africans. And it doesn't matter what Vincent Magwenya has to say. It does not matter. His opinion isn't relevant here. He can say whatever he wants. And the South African government can be annoyed all they want. Why do you exclude whites, Indians, and coloreds from participation in the economy, from participation in universities? Why do you constantly attack them with your racist rhetoric and bile? Why do you allow politicians, prominent South African politicians, to run around and scream for the murder of white Afrikaner born South Africans? Why do you tolerate that and allow all that if you don't want these people to leave? It's because your feelings are hurt and your reputation is harmed, but it should be harmed. Understand the Kenyan connection. That the Afrikaner refugees are being processed through Kenya has been publicly confirmed. Once again, Rebecca Davis, the journalist with the Daily Maverick media outlet, is calling them Afrikaners. They're not Afrikaners. Many of them, vast majority thus far, have been. But the program is not exclusively for Afrikaners, Miss Davis. If you cannot begin to be a journalist, then why do you bother? This is propaganda. And this is why the Daily Maverick has gone from a reliable, consistent, informative publication to a rag in just a few short years. A notice on the website of the U.S. Embassy in South Africa states, as of July 2025, the Department of State shifted all support functions to RSC Africa, which is operated by Church World Services based in Nairobi. It continues, RSC Africa is a trusted partner of the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program with over 20 years' experience and no connection to the South African government. RSC Africa will be responsible for communicating with applicants and responding to applicant inquiries. As we have stated over and over again, when this first came up, confirmed that was the case, told you what they're doing initial screening. And they have been doing it from Kenya. Some of the phone calls will be routed directly from Kenya. Some will be routed through U.S. Embassy switchboard, giving you a Pretoria prefix normally. And that's what's been happening. All right. So the Amerikaners X account, which provides information to would-be refugees, posted on July 17th. If you receive an email indicating that someone in Kenya will be contacting you along with a reference number and specific phone numbers, please do not be alarmed. These emails are legitimate. Yeah, well, does she mention me in the story? I don't think she does. She's backed off of mentioning me. Because I confirmed that before Amerikaners did. RSC stands for Resettlement Support Center. Duh. It's an umbrella body, the Church World Service, founded by U.S. churches in the aftermath of World War II to settle refugees from Europe. Correct. The Daily Maverick understands Church World Service normally works on refugees resettlement in collaboration with the United Nations, International Organization of Migration, but in this instance, IMO declined to assist. No, that's simply not true. Well, that's simply not true. Do you have evidence that the IOM refused to assist? The U.S. government did not contact the IOM because it's not necessary. See, this is where the ignorance of how the U.S. government works comes into play from journalists who are reporting on these stories. So for the journalist reporting on this story, what happened here is what is called in-country resettlement, in-country refugee status. It's a rare situation, Miss Davis, a rare situation, but one that does occur. The U.S. government has done it for Cuba. The U.S. government has done it for Bosnia and a handful of other countries. It's a rare occurrence, but we do it. In these situations, the United Nations International Refugee Organization doesn't have a role here. Doesn't have a role. We don't need them to process people. They're not sitting in camps. They are not Somalis living in a camp of 650,000 refugees in Kenya. So we do not need the International Organization of Migration to handle this. We don't need them. The U.S. government can handle this itself because you are not living in a camp and you're having your identity verified by the United Nations and then processing these people for the U.S. government. It's not happening like that. They aren't Somalis living in Kenya. They aren't Sudanese living in Uganda. They aren't Chadians living in neighboring states or Sudanese living in Chad. They are South Africans being granted in-country refugee status. Ms. Davis, I've said this many, many times. I know that you either listen to my podcast or my vlogs, or you have one of your interns do it and steal my content and call me a right-wing podcaster. But you cannot get the basic facts right. You do have an exclusive here. You're right. Congratulations. You did report that the Kenyans are coming to South Africa, assuming their visas are approved. But you consistently get factual information wrong. The IOM did not respond to the Daily Maverick's request for comment on Wednesday. So, you didn't talk to them. But a source told U.S. public broadcaster NPR in May that IOM refused to be involved in the process. What source? Not a source with the IOM. That story is debunked. No source at IOM. IOM declined to comment to all press on this topic. So you have no source. You are relaying third-hand information and claiming that this happened. You can say, you believe it to happen, but you cannot state it as a fact, and you just did it as a fact. The Episcopal Church Migration Service also refused a directive from the federal government to assist with the Afrikaners relocation. Yes, the Episcopal Church has identified itself as a racist organization, a hateful, racist organization which hides behind faith. They are racist, the Episcopal Church. The American Episcopal Church is a racist organization who refuses to help colored, Indian, and white South Africans escape racial persecution. They're racist, and they should have their contract with the U.S. government abrogated and canceled. We do not hire racists to perform services on behalf of the United States. Church World Service released a statement in May expressing disappointment that prioritization of Afrikaners above other refugees by the Trump administration. That's factually untrue as well. The statement released by Church World Services, Ms. Davis, talks about how they're disappointed that other people were not allowed to come. That's what they say. You are misrepresenting what Church World Services stated. Once again, propaganda. Propaganda. It stated unless it was willing to provide its services to the Afrikaner refugees. And once again, Ms. Davis, you're using quotes around the term refugees. Church World Service has not responded for requests for comment at the time of the writing. Correct. I've asked them and they've ignored it. But which visa would they be eligible for? Immigration expert Claudia Pizorki told Daily Maverick that Kenya-based staffers would not be eligible for work visas in South Africa. Work visas are only issued to those who qualify and subject to a secured offer of contract of employment in South Africa by a South African entity, not a foreign embassy. So, Church World Services can hire a South African firm to offer employment to these people to come there, and that's a firm offer employment. So that's true what she said, but you're missing the obvious here. You're missing the obvious. A diplomatic source told Dave Maverick that an application for a diplomatic visa would also be unlikely to succeed because the scenario is not legally covered by the Vienna Convention, which governs diplomatic relations between countries. And that's correct. These Kenyans cannot get a diplomatic visa to work in South Africa for the American government. They're not American citizens. They're not governed. They're Kenyan citizens. Only if they came on behalf of Kenya to South Africa could they get a diplomatic visa. That's correct. That is correct. And the first part's correct, but they're missing the obvious once again. Home Affairs had the answer for Daily Maverick. The Kenyans had applied for volunteer visas. Like all such applications, they'll be assessed in compliance with all applicable laws, regulations, and criteria. The routine turnaround time for this visa category is 8 weeks. But volunteer visas, as information from Braden Box Immigration Consultants makes clear, require applicants to receive no paid remuneration for the work they do in South Africa. All the work must be for free. It's highly unlikely that the resettlement workers coming from Nairobi to South Africa would, in reality, be unpaid. Agreed, they would not be unpaid. There's no way that Kenyans are going to come to South Africa and work on behalf of the U.S. government and not get paid. They're going to have their lodging paid for. They're going to have their travel paid for. They're going to have their meals paid for. They're going to have a salary. So this is correct. A current recruitment advertisement on Church World Service website is for child protection specialists to work in the South African Resettlement Unit, tasked with preparing reports on would-be refugee children. It's advertised as being a grade 6 position, which, according to UN salary, would likely come with a salary of more than $2,100 monthly. In other words, the U.S. State Department would probably require South African authorities to bend the rules for these applicants, and from what Daily Maverick understands, there's scant appetite for the South African executive to do so. Once again, Ms. Davis shows her ignorance, her wholesale ignorance. A current recruitment advertisement is for a child protection specialist to work in the South African Resettlement Unit. The South African Resettlement Unit is not the Kenyans coming to South Africa, Ms. Davis. Once again, your lack of understanding and your rush to judgment instead of reaching out for sources who know what they're talking about, like, say, me or the embassy or PRM, has led to fake news. The South Africa Resettlement Unit is the RSC element that works in Kenya to resettle people who are refugees in South Africa, Burundians, Congolese, Somalis, and others. So you see, once again, this is why the media cannot be trusted. This is a simple thing to solve, a simple piece of information to figure out. Not rocket science, not particle physics, not launching this Webb space telescope. This is simple, simple stuff. In a rush to get this story out, the South Africa Resettlement Unit is based in Nairobi, or in Kenya, I should say. Its role is to help resettle refugees in other countries who are currently in South Africa and receive refugee status. People who have been processed by the Human Rights Commission, the UN Human Rights Commission, or High Commissioner of Refugees, High Commissioner of Refugees. Ms. Davis gets it wrong again. The U.S. Embassy did not respond to the Daily Maverick's questions on Wednesday. Applications come at a bad time for U.S.-South Africa relations. The visa applications could hardly come at a worse juncture in terms of relations between Pretoria and Washington. You're right, because Pretoria screwed this relationship. The State Department's latest country report in South Africa, published on Tuesday, claimed that human rights situation in South Africa significantly worsened. Now, quotes are used there, and that's correct. The report is littered with exaggerations and factual flaws. And now that's an opinion, Ms. Davis. This is a news report. Opinions aren't welcome here. That's not news. I'm giving you opinions because I'm not reporting news. I'm confirming what you said about the Kenyans, the effort to come there, and I'm debunking all the stuff you got wrong. That's analysis. Therefore, I can state that. Certain to inflame tensions, in addition, was a coverage of South African National Defense Force Chief General Mapwanya. And you're right about that, Ms. Davis. That is not helpful. And his comments were asinine. And he should be removed from his office and forced into retirement. Against this backdrop and that of stiff export tariffs imposed on South Africa by the U.S., the visa saga, although it applies to only a few dozen people, takes on a heightened significance. Will Pretoria bend over backwards to accommodate a Trump project it considers nothing more than diplomatic irritant? Now, that's a fair question. That's a fair question for your article, Ms. Davis. And I doubt that South Africa will bend over backwards to help with this. I seriously doubt it. Also, you're correct that these people cannot come there as volunteers and be paid. And you're correct that they're unlikely to be able to get a work visa unless they're sponsored, because U.S. Embassy can't sponsor them to work there because they're not a private corporation or South African entity. However, a South African company can be hired. See, that's another thing you didn't explore in this article, Ms. Davis. A South African-based company can hire them and sponsor them to come there and get the contract from the U.S. government to work to do this and use the Kenyans. Yep. So, anyway, folks, that's what this is all about. Marceline Sappett says, I hope everyone listens to this podcast to show the inability to tell correct information. Yep. So, congratulations to Ms. Davis. You do have an exclusive disclosing that the U.S. government is attempting to bring 30 Kenyans to South Africa to do initial screening for refugee applicants. That is correct. 100% correct. However, the rest of your story is littered with inaccuracies and false statements and false assumptions. There you go. See, this is what happens when you slander people, Ms. Davis, and call them right-wing podcasters. It comes back to bite you. Because like an elephant, I don't forget slights. When you report the news and you do it accurately, you'll get credit for it. Like this exclusive. You have accurately reported. I can confirm that that's true. The U.S. government is attempting to do that. And you are correct in reaching out to Home Affairs. And you are correct in what they told you. They're unlikely to get a visa to work there because they're not going to be hired by a South African company. The embassy can't do it. And they won't get a diplomatic visa. That's 100% correct. But your other statements are false and incorrect. And incorrect. So there you have it, folks. That's the situation. And am I frustrated? Yes. These are not difficult things to figure out. Am I annoyed? I'm getting very annoyed by journalists in South Africa who are too lazy. Now, Miss Davis obviously is not lazy. She put some effort into this article. But once again, she knows there are people available who will answer her questions. Now, as an analyst that knows how this process works and knows what's likely to happen. Now, had she contacted me, I would not have been able to disclose that the U.S. government is attempting to bring Kenyans there. That would have been appropriate for me to do, even though I was aware of it. However, I would have been able to explain to her that the potential option of a South African company, that could be, she could have put that in her story. And I also would have been able to clarify the errors she's made here about things. So, she doesn't have to contact me. Keep putting out your stories. It keeps giving me something to talk about. It gives me something to talk about. Yep. Anyway, so there you have it. All right, folks. Yep. All right. So let me address any questions that might have come up here in the chat before I wrap up. Special broadcast. Yep. Good morning, Dennis LaRue. Who else we got here? Okay. Mostly good morning people waiting patiently. Okay. And then I came on. All right. If they're importing the Kenyans now to process Africans, it means things are getting really serious and volumes are picking up. Well, Dirk, yes, that was why I told you for the past few weeks that things are picking up. And there's going to be more hands on deck potentially. Yep. Don't worry about it. As the colonel said before, he's not aware of anyone that has been declined. Not to my knowledge yet. But then, I mean, we may not know somebody. I wonder after the first call when they will email or call again for the second round. Well, CJ and Maggie Fundervolt, it varies with every person. Every person's been different. Every person I've talked to has had a different experience. Every person who's shared their experience has had a different experience. You have to understand the volume of people involved here is immense, and the number of people working this is quite a few. Be nice to get an email on your birthday. Well, we'll congratulate you on your birthday tomorrow. Just come back and tell us. Oh my word, they are stuck in this Afrikaner refugee nonsense, or white South Africans. They absolutely are, Rhino Girl. And that is not journalism. That is propaganda. That is people acting with a political agenda. They cannot admit the truth of the matter. It states right there clearly on the U.S. Embassy website who is eligible. I have interviewed private, not broadcast, Indians and colored South Africans who have progressed through the process. They haven't come to States yet. There are coloreds who have already come over here, but they refuse. They refuse to tell the truth because it's a racist agenda, a media agenda, to misrepresent the facts and lie to people. That's the bottom line here. They are stuck, Rhino Girl, on this refugee thing. First off, the quotes is bullshit. If you're going to use quotes for refugees, then all the Kenyans, not the Kenyans, all the Somalis, all the Chadians, all the Rohingya, all of the refugees around the planet, the Tigrayans, they're not refugees. The Somalis, they're, quote, refugees. Because we take those people too. The fact that you don't like that these people qualify because of the racist policies and the danger to them in South Africa because of their ethnicity doesn't change the reality that legally they're refugees. This Afrikaner refugee narrative is now insane. Absolutely, Dirk. Absolutely. Please ask them to contact me first. When 500,000 minors leave, let's see who pays the bill for mainstream media. Exactly. Ruben says, thank you for the sleep sacrifice to you, sir, to bring this live. No, it's my pleasure. There's no way I could have explained all of this and went through her article on a prepared video. It would have been too long and too difficult. So that's why I went ahead and stayed up. I came across the article right about the same time. A few people sent it to me in WhatsApp, and I also heard from it from some other folks. This is the pushback from a compromised press in the Daily Maverick. They will want to muddy the waters because it's a dirty works brigade fronting for the government, a la the ANC, says Ricky Sang. I don't know if that's true, Ricky, but they're definitely trying to muddy the waters. Disappointing that this exclusive story is again so misleading. Yeah, it's very misleading, very dishonest. Very dishonest. If they bring the Kenyans, is the Amerikaners then a supplier of the program? Has this been confirmed? Audrey van Wyk, I would suggest that you watch the short that I made on this. Does somebody have that available? About the role of the Amerikaners. Again, I have said what I can say about the Amerikaners, and you can take that for what you believe it to be or not believe. Here's the link. It's a 3-minute short. I did this 2 days ago now. There's the link if you want to read. That's my comment on this. The Amerikaners could be a potential other vendor. So let me put this in context. When I was in Liberia, I served as a government technical monitor, GTM. In the U.S. military, we have the contracting officer's technical representative, the coder. The coder is the person who's on the ground responsible for daily oversight of contracts as contractors and vendors perform the duties under the terms of the contract. If they fall short, the coder is responsible for making sure it gets done, reporting it back to the contracting officer. Contracting officer has a legal bond and they are sitting somewhere else normally. In Africa, I was a government technical monitor, which is the same role, but under the Department of State. So I was technically working for the Department of State when I was at the U.S. Embassy in Liberia. Under that contract that we had the statement of work for the security sector reform for Liberia to reform the military, we had DynCorp and PA, Pacific Architects and Engineers, both working under the same statement of work, the SAO. And I was the GTM overseeing those contracts on a daily basis. All right? So that's the role there. Now, why did I start talking about that? I got off track here. But the government technical monitor oversees that. So I know what this was. So a contract can have more than one vendor applied to it. All right? A statement of work, I should say. A statement of work can have more than one vendor. So it is possible, because they have a surge and they have thousands and thousands of these things that must be screened, that the State Department can hire RSC, which they've done. They can continue to do some of the work themselves, but they don't have the manpower for it. Or they can add other vendors. And if the Amerikaners become a vendor, they could be potentially added to this. All right? So there you have it. That answers that question. Man, when are you going to take a long walk of your beer? Yep. Yeah, it's based on facts. And it's using open source material. Uses the French press agency, South African Human Rights Commission. So they're saying they're propaganda? Trust me, they're not. They don't do anything for minorities. Adrian Havanga says, misleading. This must be done with the intent to discourage people, or they need to do a fact check and reporting course. Better yet, they need a new job because they suck at journalism. I agree. We know it's all part of a plan to discredit Trump and the program, but it still sucks to read this misleading info when it comes out because people who are uninformed believe this stuff. Well, Dirk, then you need to spread links to this video around. Tell people about it. Tell them come watch this stream so they can get the truth. Jules, you're welcome for me staying up late. Firefox 40, welcome to you. Every person landing in the USA through this program just need to spread the truth to their family and friends. That will be enough to get rid of this mainstream misinformation. Yep. You're welcome, Fiona. Okay. Bosnia, Serbia, Kosovo since 1350 is Muslims versus Christians, American bases in Kosovo. I don't know what you're getting at, American base in Kosovo. What's that all about? Love that the organization involved in this program don't talk to the media and protect the program details. Yep. They're already trying to block visas. Who asks these type of questions? The journalist is trying everything to try and make a headline, even using third-hand information, heavy assumptions. Dirk, that's a well-stated comment there. Jared Vessels, Pierre Rousseau, contacting Home Affairs and questioning about people's visas. Is Home Affairs even allowed to disclose? Well, they can. I can contact Home Affairs and ask general question. Can foreign nationals sponsored by a foreign government work in South Africa? Will they get a visa? That's a question they could have asked. So, I mean, that's okay. That's okay. Rebecca Davis is entitled to ask that question to Home Affairs, and they're allowed to answer it. Okay, does that make sense? They hate us, they want us out, but they will hold us hostage, says Ruben. The ANC don't want them to leave as they're part of the few tax-paying citizens. Good morning. Thanks, USA, for actually sticking your word and following this through, getting more systems in place, not used to this kind of service in South Africa. Yeah, this journalist needs to sit in a classroom, get an education, and needs to wear a stupid sign. Sick and tired of these journalists spreading bullshit stories. Well, I'm with you, Doretta. They want to deplete the voter base of the DA and Freedom Front Plus, and also need taxpayer minorities to keep funding corrupt. Thank you for verbalizing what we're going through, says Eves. You're welcome. Well, no, the Kenyans will simply perform a task. That's all they're doing. It's a service provider. They don't make any decisions. They just process, they ask you the questions, confirm who you are, pass the data on, and a decision gets made elsewhere. Why is the colonel not sleeping? Because news is breaking. That's what real journalists do. Real journalists go where the news story is. Real journalists ask the hard questions. Real journalists are objective in their analyzing when they're giving commentary, real commentators. So that's why I'm up. I'm up at 2:30 in the morning because this is news. And if I go to bed by 8:30, if I get up at 8:30, 6 hours, that would never happen. Let's say I get up at 5:30. I get up at 5:30, I will have 500 WhatsApp messages and 2,000 emails from people that I didn't ask for asking about this story. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Maybe the numbers are off. Maybe it'll be less, maybe more. But people will want to know. People will panic. And rumors will spread. And Rumit is one of the most powerful intelligence sources in South Africa, rumor intelligence. People love to tell rumors. They love to spread rumors. And this will spread far and wide. So I've done my public service to report this and analyze and confirm what she said. They are trying to bring Kenyans to South Africa to process, screen refugees. That's why I'm up. Colonel loves us. Nah, Ruben, I don't know if I love you all. I'm a professional. It's also embarrassment of being called racist country that irks the ruling party, so they send the compromised press after the U.S. and refugees. Yep, you're right. You're right, Ricky's saying. It is the playbook of a defunct, dying party desperately holding on to power. That's what it is. They sick their press dogs on. Yeah, the general probably only be told to do an apology. Probably nothing happened to him. Thank you for awesome program. You're welcome, Andre. I've been wondering, since the USA state has the human rights report, we will still need to explain the future and current. As I said, okay, apparently you missed Fit Nut. You missed my broadcast. What I said is that I encourage every person who is interested. Again, let's be clear about this. I'm not asking any of you people to come to America, and you certainly hell aren't sitting on my front lawn. Anyone's interested in the refugee program. But again, as I said, when I did this, and I did my live stream yesterday, and then I did my prepared video, I encourage all people interested in the refugee program to download the Human Rights Report for 2024. The link is available in the previous video. I'll try to remember after this broadcast to put the link in there. Go through it, and then in the executive summary, highlight that, read it, learn about it. Then go to page 15, read that and learn about it. Read about the unlawful detention, learn about the torture in here, and read about page 15. If you're Jewish, read about that as well. And then memorize that. And when you talk about future fears of persecution, there you have it right there. There you have it right there. Now, unlike other people, I haven't asked you for any money, have I? I haven't asked you for your time. You don't have to be here. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to take my advice. But you'd be foolish not to. It's been offered for free, and it's good advice. Kenyans can just walk across their borders like all the other immigrants. Yeah, but then they won't be able to get paid. Many Amerikaners can assist when they're up and running to sponsor work visas. I don't know the Amerikaners can do that, and they will probably be thwarted by Home Affairs if they don't want these people coming to South Africa. Miss Davis will see it, or one of her underlings will see it. She's already slandered me on multiple occasions. Although the last time she was generous, she called me did she call me the towering figure in the refugee movement? It was very generous of her. I don't think I'm a towering figure in the refugee movement. I'm not in the refugee movement. I'm simply an objective commentator commenting on this. So, and by the way, let's be clear. I don't have any animosity towards Miss Davis, even though she slandered me on multiple occasions, calling me a right-wing podcaster. I mean, that's just insulting. That's insulting. I'm a university lecturer. Does she lecture at university? Is she a university professor? Is she a published author other than newspapers? I'm also published in newspapers and in periodicals and in academic books. Is she published there? You know, is she a counterintelligence agent? Is she, look, I don't have a beef with her. But I would appreciate if she gets the facts straight. Because otherwise it's just propaganda. And it's not hard to find me. I mean, I'm in touch with the Daily Maverick. I've helped them get access to refugees for interviews, for stories. I've been in touch with the Daily Maverick. They reached out to me. They asked for my assistance, and I provided it. So I don't have a beef here. I don't want people to get that impression. But I would ask Ms. Davis to take the time and the courtesy to reach out instead of running incomplete stories. So tired of the media keeping on with this and the fact that our lives doesn't matter. Exactly. You're just pawns. You're just pawns to them. And if you were pawns to the American government, then they would counterpoint. The American government would counterpoint. But the American government's not saying anything. They're just processing people to get them out of the country. So if you think you're a pawn, and that's how the press portrays it, you're just pawns of Trump. He's just using you. For what? What do we want from South Africa? Nothing. Nothing. Except that you stop undermining our national interests. That would be nice. Nikki says you're kind of a big deal here. Really? Well, thank you for saying that. My husband got contacted yesterday by the Amerikaners and spoke to him, and they sent him an email that he had to fill out, so I'm not sure they're helping. Sandre Leah, I will tell you that if your husband was contacted yesterday by the Amerikaners, you should be fine. Your husband should be getting help, okay? I wouldn't worry about it. You've also not disclosed anything that's going to put you in any jeopardy, and they didn't ask for any money. So just roll with the flow. It should be okay. Leah says, thank you for your time and guidance. Listening to you every time just makes me hopefully hang in there, okay? Will South Africa not perhaps block the Kenyan team from doing their work? Well, Martin, yes, I think they would, because they don't have a legitimate basis based on what Miss Davis said. If she's correct, and I believe she is correct in her story, number one, they're not going to get a diplomatic visa because they're not American citizens. They're not part of the diplomatic corps. They can't be issued a diplomatic visa, so that's not going to happen. If they were Americans, they could get a diplomatic visa, come over and their work, but they don't even have to prove those. They can deny those. So that's not going to happen. I believe she's correct because she talked to Home Affairs about them not being able to come to South Africa and work without being sponsored. I believe that's true, and so that presents a problem. The U.S. government cannot sponsor them as a foreign entity. However, a South African company could. And see how I think through these things? See how I do the full holistic approach to this? See, I've already thought about this whole situation for some time. I'll leave it at that. I've known about this for some time. I haven't disclosed it because it wasn't my place to disclose it. And I thought about this from the moment I heard about it. And the wheel started spinning. Well, how are you going to get them to South Africa? Do you really think the South African government is going to give them visas to work there to help with this program? And what sort of visas would they get? So I've already thought this all through. Chris, don't know if you missed my previous question. Are the procedures different between PRM program? No, nothing's different. All that the Kenyans, it's not a Kenya program. Please don't call it that, Ian. It's not a Kenya program. It's still the U.S. Refugee Assistance Program, USRAP. It's still that. And you deal with different entities. You deal with PRM, you deal with USCIS, you deal with different folks. And now you deal with RSC. There's no difference. There's no difference. And also, you have to not conflate what happened with the 59ers and the people who submitted their PRM emails some time ago with RSC. That is a different process. So in answering your question, maybe I'm not correct in how I answered it. What happens through PRM is consistently the same. What RSC is doing the screening that PRM had to do on its own before. It doesn't have the labor to do that. Therefore, they've hired a vendor to do that, to expedite the process. If you only have, let's say, 10 people working on this program for South Africans, which is a reasonable number, it's probably over the top. But if you only have 10 people working on this, actually it's more than that. I know the number. It's if you have 10 people, and 4 of them have to spend all their time making phone calls. Hello, are you Miss Fundameva? Yes, Miss Fundameva. Are you a South African national, a citizen? Do you have a passport? Yes, I'm a South African. Okay. Have you suffered unjust racial discrimination in the past? You have. Okay. Do you have a fear of future persecution? Yes, you do. All right. You will receive a email in the next couple of weeks, and that will give you instructions, and we'll set up and contact you again and set up an appointment for you to come to Pretoria to be interviewed in person. Are you still interested in the program? Would you like to continue? You would. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Boom, shakalaka. Case is done. Send the forms, send the authorizations. That's the screening. It's a little more to it than that. And those of you who had the phone call know what I'm talking about. It's a little more to it, but that's what they're doing. They're not deciding who goes. They have no say in that. They legally couldn't have any say in that. Only U.S. Immigration and State Department and Department of Homeland Security can say that. Okay? The Biz News AI. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Alex didn't host anything. It was lefty propaganda. Benji, I castigated that in my night owls. Obviously, you didn't watch my night owls. I absolutely castigated that. That's an embarrassment. I was so disappointed in Alex Hogue. Also, so disappointed in Alex Hogue saying that it's unfortunate that South Africans feel the need to go abroad to spread misinformation. He's spreading his misinformation in using Google or ChatGPT animated or automated conversation in which they pull social media tweets in which people make outrageous claims that nobody believes in and nobody watches. 60 farmers murdered per day. No one believes that nonsense. You'd have 20,000 farmers murdered per year if that was the case. That's absolutely ridiculous. And they act as if that's a fact. It's garbage. So embarrassing for Biz News. It ought to be removed. He should be ashamed of himself. We are our own worst enemies. Every time there's a new step, we expose it because we keep talking about it. I recall certain towering figures saying that the loose lips. I'm in Texas. I have no option but to disclose this. No option, because Rebecca Davis ran this story. So either I can stay mum on it and allow people to believe whatever she wrote there and panic, or I can go live at 2:30 in the morning, giving up my sleep and my rest to analyze this accurately and tell you what's going on. So I have known about this, but I did not disclose it because loose lips do sink ships. Had I done a story on this when I first found out about this and told you about the Kenyans coming to South Africa, I guarantee you, there would have been an effort to not give them visas. You want to bet dollars to donuts? Oh, of course, that racist white ring podcaster, yeah, he said they're coming. Now we got to stop them. So yes, loose lips do sink ships. And just like not releasing the interview with Thea van Staden while they were still in South Africa, can you imagine? I would have had 1 million views. Nobody knew they were leaving. Nobody knew. None of the news. I knew when they were leaving, how they were leaving, who was leaving. I knew all that. And instead of releasing that video, I was responsible and protected their safety, unlike other people. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's what responsible people do. That's what leaders do. Anyway, but I have no choice but to disclose it now. Otherwise, this will be rank speculation and people will freak out. So that's why this live stream is on right now. And I know there are people at Daily Maverick watching this right now, and at Cockprot24, and at IOL, and you're all welcome to get the story correct. I encourage you to get the story correct so I can call you a real journalist. And I also know U.S. officials are watching this, and ANC is watching this. So to all of you folks, I just ask you to listen up. I don't want anyone to leave South Africa. It's a horrific concept that anyone have to leave their homeland. I'm encouraging 0 people to leave. But it's also not my role to discourage anyone to leave. It's my role to be honest and objective and analyze things accurately. We don't get everything right, but we sure get a lot of it right. And it's time for stopping the nonsense. If you keep claiming you're a sovereign state, South Africa, then why do you keep impinging on our sovereignty by using quotes in your officials, denying that these people are refugees, and your captured media using quotes around refugees? They are refugees under our law, and we're accepting them. And if you don't like that, then you don't recognize our sovereignty, a sovereignty we won in 1783. We declared in 1776, and we outright won our independence. We're internationally recognized in 1783. You weren't recognized as a nation until 1910, and technically until 1961 or 1994. Pick one of those 3 dates. You're a bunch of young, juvenile, adolescent children on the block. We've been around much longer. So recognize our sovereignty. It's our law, and we are adhering to our law. And if you don't like it, get over yourself. They're not refugees. They're legal refugees. And that's it. Perhaps those coming are like that, Kathy, but we already, what's this? I remember some time ago you said you do have some inside info but can't share because of negative impact. That's right, Mustard Coach Olive, Mustard Olive Coach. This is one of the things I knew about. And I couldn't share it because it was inappropriate. But this story's been broken now, and so I have to talk about it. If only 3% of the world will have your common sense and responsibility, the world would already be a better place. Thank you, sir. I appreciate every video you make. You're welcome. David Mobsari, what's your opinion on executive order? Won't it put Americans at risk if they don't support Israel? I haven't read Executive Order 14-188, David. You're going to have to give me more information. And that's not what this conversation is about unless it's related to the program. So that media will never report the truth. They just, yep. Thanks for staying up so late. But you're welcome, Doug Ray. So we have all our documents finally, but we have to move closer to Pretoria because our finances and hands are tied where we are. Any ideas? I don't know, Nikki. I'll have to think about that one. Why are white English-speaking South Africans never mentioned? Because they own all the companies, and they need them for the taxes. What do you mean, why are they never mentioned Mercy in Spain? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? They're not mentioned. I mention them all the time. White South Africans and Afrikaners. Vinette and I do. I mention coloreds, Indians, Afrikaners, white South Africans all the time. Sandef and Iran pledging their support. Yeah, no, that's a big mistake. Alrighty, folks. I'd love to stay and enjoy chatting with you more. Please hit the like button. Only 319 likes. Come on, I could at least get 500 likes out of this for being up this hour to bring you this analysis. Again, no animosity towards Miss Davis, but Miss Davis, you've really, really got to put more effort into this. She's actually puts more effort into than most of these journalists in South Africa. So I got to give her credit for that. And I give her credit and kudos for breaking the story. It's a story that I didn't break. And congratulations. She has no responsibilities to her nation because her nation's not America. But I have responsibility to my nation and loyalty to this flag and to this credo. And therefore, I felt it was inappropriate to disclose this information because it would harm U.S. interest. And that's why I didn't disclose it. All right? And you can take that for what you want. You can believe me, you don't have to believe me. That's whatever. I don't really care. I don't really care. But it's funny, guys, how this story broke about an hour ago, and I can sit here and go online immediately and give you cogent, insightful, thoughtful, deep analysis. Now, I can generally do that on many topics, but you notice how well-informed I was about this story that just broke. Funny that, isn't it? Funny how I was able to go with this so quickly. All right. I encourage you to go read the story on the Daily Maverick, and I'll put the link below the video. I'll also put the link to the U.S. Human Rights Report for South Africa for 2024. You guys have a good night. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And yeah, please hit the like button. 383. It's 562 of you here. Still not hitting the like button. Do we have to pull your teeth to get those likes? All right. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for everything you try to do and help us keep us informed. All right. I'm going to bed. And then I've got some more videos to make when I get up, including one about DERCO and how it's bogus effort to refute the Human Rights Report. It's comical. All righty. Good night, guys. Thanks a lot. Take care. Well, good day for people in South Africa. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that like button. It's free. Cheers.